apologize. The minutes from the November 17th meeting are attached in the board's binder under the second tab. If the board feels those reflect the proceedings of that meeting, you can move to, there can be a motion to approve. If there needs to be any revisions, then you can amend.
Again, what tab?
It's the second.
Orange.
Oh, they're all
Have
different
one.
colors.
Chair. Mr. Chair, here's mine. Oh, you got it, okay. I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Aye.
So, Mr. Watson, let's go over what has happened in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It may help if I just go through the binder and I can outline where the various things we received are at. So we have in the board's binders the, and I'm receiving a reminder that just to remind you that when each of you speak, you should, I think, turn on your mics. There's a button at the bottom of the mic. In the board's binders, under the purple tab the first thing is BOE 3/2023, which is the complaint that we received in relation to this matter. The tab following that is the referral letter of this matter to the board from my office. The following tab is the respondent's answer to the complaint. The tab after that is the complainant's disclosure and written statement of the issues pursuant to the board's rules. The tab after that is the respondent's disclosures pursuant to Rule 4E2 of the board's rules, which includes the respondent's identified witnesses and documentary exhibits. And at this point, I can diverge and just talk a little bit about the documents we've received in the last 24 hours. The parties, we did alert the parties that to the extent they wanted to serve subpoenas, that they should get us the subpoenas they wanted to serve in advance of the hearing. The respondent, Councilor Bassan, through counsel, did provide us with subpoenas, which we relayed to the board chair. Those were then signed, I believe, on roughly the 28th of December. We relayed those to Councilor Bassan's counsel, who I believe served them because we received the returns of service. We then last night received a motion to quash one of the subpoenas and an email from one of the recipients of one of the subpoenas indicating that many of the same arguments in the motion to quash. So we've provided the motion to quash and the email from one of the parties who received the subpoena to the board, but those are not in your binder. And Member Martinez, we will bring you a copy of that now, I realized. Also last night, respondent provided an affidavit and a recording of a witness. Those are included in the board's binder under the response tab with the other disclosures. That is correct. And just to remind you, Chair Kelly, to press the buttons before you speak so that the video captures.
Nice, thank you.
And
So if it's something that we received last night, it's not necessarily in my binder.
it is, the affidavit is in your binder. The motion to quash and the email from witness Nidhi Aldeen are not in your binder. Those are there.
Okay, has everybody got the motion to quash? Yes.
Microphone. The motion to quash came in last night. Correct. And then the final document, and the final documents in the board's binder is the letter I sent to the parties outlining the general overview of the framework for the hearing. And then the last document.
Identify more specifically the letter you're referring to there.
It's the one tab, it's one of the tabs not labeled in the back. It's a January 9th letter from me to Mr. Esdale and Councilor Wasan. And then for the board's reference, we also included a copy of the board's rules and the relevant provisions of the charter in the end of the binder.
You need to find that letter first. I'll bring you a copy. We didn't have my binder.
Is it-
My colleague has made a copy available to the chair. Does everybody else here on the board have the letter that dated January 9, 2024? Okay, is there anything, you brought it up, Mr. Watson, is there anything about this letter other than the fact that we have it that you want to?
No, I just
Yes,
thought, no, Mr. Chairman, I just thought it would be useful for the board to know what we had outlined as the general proceeding for the case, which this does sort of track with the board's rules and the time allocations we discussed with you.
Okay. So I'm inclined to go forward unless there's something else that the clerk's office would feels as a matter of process or heads up that we need to know about.
No, I think it's the board's prerogative as to how to address the procedural matters that may arise in this.
Okay. Am I right that this is the second hearing in this case? We had one on November 17, and is this our second? Or was there an earlier one?
That is technically accurate. We did have an initial hearing in this matter where my office requested a good cause extension of the 90-day deadline in this matter because the parties were engaging in discussions with my office regarding potential resolution of the complaint. Ultimately, we scheduled this for a hearing. So there was an earlier hearing, but the only issue before the board at that time was whether or not, the waiver of the 90-day deadline in the charter.
Do I recall correctly that the chair, in consultation with the clerk's office, decided we would give 10 minutes per, as an opening statement to each of the parties before we moved into?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chairman. So we also met and pursuant to the board's rules, sent the parties a letter outlining the order of the proceedings, but also the timeframes we were going to initially allocate to the parties for the various events associated with the proceedings. So the letter outlines that Each party will be allocated a maximum of 10 minutes for their opening. The proceeding will then proceed to witness and presentation of the case, during which each party is allocated 45 minutes for presenting witnesses and making their case. This does, however, the 45 minutes include time spent cross-examining the other party's witnesses.
Okay.
Rebuttal is at the discretion of the chair, and then there will be closing statements. Each party will be granted 10 minutes for their closing statements.
Okay, so members of the board, if there's anything else that you think we ought to at least discuss prior to hearing from the complainant in his 10-minute opening, then would you raise it now? Yes, sir?
Mr. Chair, are we going to address the motion to quash before we proceed with opening statements?
My inclination is not to, because I think the more we learn in the normal process, we can address this one. I'm not, right now I feel like we've got no real, we have no testimony, we don't know what the thinking is of the complainant at the moment, we haven't heard from him. I just as soon get started, and can't hurt to hear each side's opening statement.
I would agree with the chair that I think we're probably all kind of peeved about what's going on with witnesses, but I'd like to understand the materiality of the witnesses to the respective cases. I think that would benefit us in deciding what to do about it.
Well said, Mr. Marks. Anybody else?
I just wanted to note that in the city clerk's January 9th referral letter, the city clerk already did deal or address which parts of the complainant's complaint are germane today. So the city clerk already made a determination that some parts of the complaint were basically the statute of limitations had expired, and then some parts there was a violation, there was an allegation of a state law violation, and the city clerk has already determined that to be outside the jurisdiction of the board. So I just wanted to note those predeterminations, which will limit the decisions that the board is going to make today.
Well, that may be. I don't disagree that may be. But I think what I'd like to do, and I don't think there's been an objection to it, we proceed with the complainant. He has 10 minutes to come forward and be at a microphone and make your opening statement, sir. Mr. Estelle. Check your microphone.
Thank you. The microphone here? Is that, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Okay, good. My name is David Esdale. I reside at 4335 San Pedro, Northeast, Apartment E9 in Albuquerque. After finishing college with a draft number of 3, I worked as a postal delivery carrier for 4 months until I went into the Army. As part of my job, I had to learn the details about the Hatch Act, which was named after a senator from New Mexico, from Clovis, Clay Hatch. It was in reference to certain shenanigans that might have been going on at the EPA, at the WPA, Works Progress Administration. Yes.
We note your long history and life in New Mexico, but this is 10 minutes to make your opening.
Yes, sir. So the Hatch Act, federal, it prohibits mixing of employment, politics, when you work for the government. The early lessons shaped who I am. That's why I'm here before you. as a registered voter of City Council, District Number 4. I'm not an attorney. I don't have personal resources to hire an attorney. I believe City Councilor Brooke Bassan may have violated a vitally important section of the city charter. It goes to the heart of our democracy, using his or her positions or employment with the city to influence support of employees of the city for or against any candidate. My request is that the Board of Ethics pursue its own investigation, because I don't have the resources to do it myself.
Is it your, are you telling us that your strongest statement is about Councilor Bassan is that she may have violated?
Yes.
Can you turn that off, please?
Sorry about that.
As a factual matter, would you address, to the extent you're able, the facts relevant to the assertion that the city councilor, Ms. Bassan, violated the code?
I think that's a determination you have to make. I mean,
That's right. It's-
Yes.
We have to make it.
yes,
But we're not going to scratch our head all day thinking about it unless you, as the complainant, tell us what the problem is from your
Yes,
perspective.
yes, I feel
Do
there may be an issue there.
Do that. Tell us what the problem is.
Right, the problem, for me, is that an employee of the city council, specifically of Councilor Bassan, registered to vote in the councilor's office, in the councilor's district, without changing, as far as I know, her mailing address, and made a contribution and signed a document saying that she was a resident of the district.
And if all of that were true,
Yes,
it means that Miss, tell me the name again of the lady who's,
Don Emilio.
thank you, Miss Emilio. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue, please.
Well, my request is that the Board of Ethics do its own investigation. Do I think there's something to investigate there? I think there is. The way things have been laid out, I mean, we have testimony that was taken last night by Brooke Bassan's employee, saying that Brooke Bassan had nothing to do with the decision for her to change her voter registration. I guess my own concern is that there may be people in government, okay, who leave employees or underlings, in a hanging out position. I mean, Dawn has said that her life has been disturbed by this. And, she's been put in turmoil, and says that there have been allegations that have been disturbing.
Well, and this is because of your actions, is that right?
Negative. It's because of Brooke Bassan's actions, I believe, and I'm asking you to determine that.
Councilor, Board Member Marks, please.
I answered a commissioner, too.
Yeah, sorry.
I can do all those things.
I have the same problem.
Mr. Asdale,
Yes.
in the hypothetical situation that Ms. Emilio lived in the district, before the election, continued to live in the same residence that was in Ms. Bassan's council district, was her employee here. Everything's the same, except she started out living in the district, not in Ms. Bassan's home, was registered to vote there, did a qualifying $5 contribution. Would you consider that an ethical violation?
No,
So it's not an ethical violation for, in your mind, and I think in my mind, for a city employee to give a qualifying contribution for the person they report to?
absolutely not.
Okay. So what's the difference here? Do you allege that Ms. Emilio was not a bona fide resident of the district?
I think it's pretty clear from her testimony that she was living in the district. So she was in the district, yes.
Is it that she was living in Ms. Bassan's home? I mean, which fact
No.
is, which fact turns this from the situation of the hypothetical I gave you to an ethical violation? If it's not that she gave the contribution, it's not that she was living, you don't dispute that she was a bona fide resident. Is it that you believe that, I mean, the gist of what I understand your complaint to be is you believe that Councilor Bassan somehow unduly influenced her to give the contribution.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that could have happened if she lived in a different home in the district. Do you believe Councilor Bassan possibly unduly influenced her to move into the home to be in the district?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't have any evidence for that. All I've looked at is the fact that someone would change their registration, short time later, sign documents for a counselor to receive public financing, and also, make a contribution. There's just something not quite right about that. And again, I think I've been an employee, I've also been an employer, and I'm very sensitive to undue pressures being put on people who are in an employee situation and have to show up every day and work for somebody who may be advanced by a certain one vote, one signature, $5. On the other hand, is that significant? I don't know. The counselor said it's one vote is not significant. On the other hand, I've worked in political campaigns for a long time. Every vote counts.
Is that your case, sir?
Yes, sir.
How are we with time? You have another minute to summarize or make another observation.
No, I think my opening statement is complete, sir. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
One other question. Mr. Esdale, just to confirm, you're not planning to call any witnesses aside from yourself?
That's correct.
City Clerk?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify that in timing this, I am counting the board's questions toward the party's time. If you want me, or if you don't want me to do that, just let me know. We didn't actually.
No, don't worry about that. If it's a conundrum later, we'll figure it out.
Okay. So we won't count it for now, but I don't think it'll
But
be an issue.
we're tracking it, right?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison, would you, for my benefit, introduce yourself
Yes, sir.
and why you're here?
My name is Carter Harrison of Harrison and Hart, and I'm here representing Councilor Brooke Bassan in this matter. She's the respondent. So the clerk referred, and both sides now agree that the sole issue before the board today is whether Ms. Bassan, quote, used her position with the city to influence the support of an employee, namely Dawn Marie Emilio, and that's Albuquerque City Charter, Article 7, Section 7A. There's no gloss on what influence means that I can find, either certainly not for the city charter specifically, but really even for an analogous law. The city charter does follow that up with, "This shall not abridge the free speech rights of any official," to make clear what should probably also be, already be obvious, which is that influence has got to be more than, "Hey, I've got a nominating petition, would you like to sign? Hey, I'm trying to get public financing, would you like to contribute?" We've proposed the definition, Black's Law Dictionary defines influence as, quote, "use of pressure, authority, or power, usually indirectly, to induce action or change the decisions or acts of another." Ballantines, which is another law dictionary, defines it as, quote, "pressure applied to undermine or override a person's judgment or willpower." So that's what we would propose. Obviously, the complainant is proposing a laxer definition. It doesn't really matter here, given the evidence that we have to present to the board today. At the end of the day, I'll go ahead and say on the motions to quash, I can't tell you right now whether service was proper or not. I was texting my paralegal about this. We'll look into it. But it doesn't matter. We don't need to call those witnesses, and so we can consider Ms. Bassan is here in person. Ms. Emilio, unfortunately, there was some miscommunication, and she is out of town today. We found out about that on Wednesday evening, and we set up the structure that we did. I contacted Mr. Esdale yesterday morning to say, "Hey, we've set up this program. It's not very convenient, but she's going to come in after her. She goes to CNM nursing school at night after work. So the earliest she could come in and do basically a little deposition was she came in at 9:30. The offer that I made, and this is my email to Mr. Esdale, was submitted as Exhibit 2. What I wrote to Mr. Esdale is, quote, "Although it isn't required because hearsay is fully admissible in these BOE proceedings, out of fairness and because I think it might be helpful to you to hear from her, I wanted to invite you to sit in for this interview if you would like. When I am done asking Ms. Emilio questions, you could also have an equal amount of time to ask your own questions. I would give you a copy of the recording, and you'd use whatever portion of it you like in your case in chief tomorrow." Mr. Esdale didn't respond, so we conducted the interview, just myself and Ms. Emilio in my office. We recorded that, and then I also summarized some of the things she had to say into an affidavit, which should be in your binders today. What Ms. Emilio says is fully consistent with what Ms. Bassan says, which is Ms. Emilio was, for reasons that we really don't think are appropriate to get into, Ms. Emilio was staying with Ms. Bassan from about December of 2022 through most of 2023. She changed her registration in April. The answer to the question, well, why didn't you change it back in December, is honestly, I realized the election was coming up, and that's when I decided to change my address. She gave a qualifying contribution and nominating petition, both electronically, both at the same time. She says in her interview, that she would have done it anyway. She would have done it whether or not Brooke Bassan had brought the materials to her or anything like that. And that's going to be the evidence that the board hears from Ms. Bassan, whom, of course, the board and Mr. Esdale can ask questions, and Ms. Emilio, who, again, unfortunately is not going to be here live, but who we have, the full panoply of question and answers from.
On your recording.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
So, and then there's one other, I guess, thing stepping back from this. While it's unusual, and I can see where someone would see a city employee having the same voter registration address as a counselor or some candidate as unusual, it doesn't make sense as part of some kind of a fraud scheme. First of all, this would all be done to get, in theory, one QC, one qualifying contribution, and one nominating petition. Now, she cleared her required threshold. Her nominating petition threshold was 500. She got 570. I don't remember QC-wise, but I'm sure she got more than one over the threshold. And if you wanted to do something like this, and have your employee falsely register within the district, which I want to say again is not actually part of the complaint remaining before the board. The very worst address in the entire district you could have that person register for is your own as counselor. If the claim starts getting more outlandish into things like, well, maybe Brooke Bassan was willing to have someone live with her for the better part of a year in order to get that one QC and one nominating petition signature, that's getting ridiculous. Now, the way that this ends is obviously the allegations were made in the lead up to the election, before the election. Some might assume that the purpose for these allegations were to have been made and publicized before the election. But they were very difficult on Miss Amelia, who values her privacy. Miss Amelia ultimately decided to cancel her registration, despite having been an active voter for many years now, did not vote at all in the 2023 election. So that if there was quote unquote influence to support the campaign of Ms. Bassan, it would be in the form of that QC and nominating petition signature, which appeared to have been made on the same day, which, by the way, was not even like the day after or the day of the change in voter registration. It was a month and a half-ish later. So again, which it's not even like, okay, I changed my voter registration here at 1 o'clock just so that I can give the QC and sign the nominating petition here an hour later. We would respectfully characterize this as the case with no evidence and ask the court to go ahead and, or I'm sorry, ask the board to go ahead and issue a finding today and find that Ms. Bassan has not violated the Code of Ethics. Thank you. And I'll take any questions the board has.
Thank you, counsel. Members of the board, any questions for Mr. Harrison?
Thank you.
Excuse, thank you. So I guess I'd like to know what the pleasure of the board is. I think each of us probably has some thoughts about what we've heard the last 30 minutes, and we can discuss it here. We can if it's appropriate, go into a closed session. What are your wishes?
Are the parties going to put on evidence?
I'm thinking not. That was the evidence. Mr. Harrison, do I misunderstand? Go ahead.
So we can present the live testimony of Ms. Bassan, and then in the past, the board has had us play it's a 5-minute recording. We tried to keep it brief because I know they're difficult to sit through. But we can play that in front of the board, although it was submitted to the board. And this, I don't know that the board necessarily has like a J&OB, like a halftime motion procedure, but I will say that if the board is willing to entertain a motion like that, then I'm going to make it now and say that I think that the board probably could rule that there's insufficient evidence to proceed at this point.
Thank you.
I guess I would say, since we're not bound by any formal rules of, well, there are rules of procedure, but we're not bound by the civil rules of procedure, so we don't have, as Mr. Harrison referred to, a halftime decision. I would, I guess, want to clarify with Mr. Esdale one more time as to whether he has any witnesses, and then proceed to hear the respondent's witnesses.
I do not have witnesses.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Mr. Esdale a question?
Please,
Mr. Esdale, Mr. Harrison mentioned that he invited you to this interview that took place yesterday with Miss Emilio. Did he do that? Did you get an invitation from him?
Yes, I received an email about 11:45.
And Mr. Harrison represented that you didn't respond to that email.
Correct.
And why not?
I was actually out of town, so I wasn't getting back until later, and I didn't want to actually attend
I'm sorry, you trailed off a little bit there.
Oh, I didn't want to attend. It was at 10 o'clock at night.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Esdale, can you stay there for a second? You don't have any witnesses, but you had exhibits. And, Mr. Chair, I'd like to put Mr. Esdale's exhibits C, D, and E into the record, which are which I assume are the true and accurate voter registration card from Ms. Emilio, and the other official records. I'm not particularly interested in the two news reports.
Right.
And I think Mr. Esdale probably doesn't know how to do that, but I'd suggest, Mr. Esdale, that if you wanted to move the admission of your exhibits, we'd have them in our record.
Right, I'd like them to be in your record.
And Mr. Chair, I then would, I don't know if we do this as Robert's, or it's just your determination, maybe. But I'd like to see C, D, and E in the record.
You'd like to see what,
I'd like to have
CD and E?
C, D, E, the official records from the clerk's office in the record.
Sure. That's not a problem,
Okay?
and it's so ordered. Anything else?
No, that's
Anything
it.
else that we have, I should say, from Mr. Esdale?
And Mr. Chair, since I'd like to hear some testimony from Councilor Bassan. I don't know if the rest of the board would.
And with the board has been provided with the audio of Ms., where should Ms. Bassan be seated? Does she come, do
I couldn't hear that.
Oh,
you want her to be seated over here?
We've typically had witnesses appear from this chair right there.
While Ms. Bassan is approaching the witness seat, would the board like to have me play in open court the audio of Ms. Emilio's interview? Like I said, it's 5 minutes and 10 seconds.
I'm not inclined to, but that's because I think there isn't a case that you're really defending against. And I'm concerned it may just take a lot of time. But it's good to know it's there, and if members of the board want to hear it, then we can do that.
For me, it's not a question of whether I'd like to hear it. I just want the respondent to have the opportunity to present the evidence that it believes is necessary to address all of the issues in the case.
Nicely said, yes.
Certainly.
Well, I personally would not, I'm not that interested in the recording. I think that it's their witness, and I'll take on, I'll accept Mr. Harrison's assertions that this was unknown, but this is a big case for Ms. Bassan, regardless. I mean, whenever you're a public official, and you guys should have taken more care to make sure that a key witness was going to be available, give live testimony, and, a recorded interview taken when just, I think we're allowed to do hearsay, but this is a pretty key witness, and
Yes,
I
but
don't
if
think it
this
has
was a court, there would be opportunities to preserve a witness's testimony who was going to be unavailable for the hearing, and we're not bound here by the formal rules of evidence. Just as a matter of completeness,
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
The question here is not whether the board wants to hear it, it's whether the respondent wants to present
Right.
it. So if Mr. Harrison could give us, I know it is available and he's offered, But if Mr. Harrison thinks that it is key to his case, he should have the opportunity to present it. He's the one who should make that determination on what evidence he's going to put to the board.
It's not up to this body to decide what evidence we're going to take,
Well, it-
whether something's relevant or real competent or.
You're certainly allowed to decide it's not relevant and disregard it, but he is the one who is putting on the case and should have the opportunity to present it.
You have the floor, Mr. Harrison.
Certainly, I will start with Ms. Bassan. Ms. Bassan, can you tell me your name and your position with the city?
My name is Brooke Bassan, and I am the city councilor for District 4,
Okay. How long have you been in that role?
4 years.
Okay. Who is Dawn Marie Emilio?
She is my policy analyst and friend.
Okay. In the period relevant to this case, was Ms. Emilio staying with you at your home?
Yes,
Okay. Can you give an approximate date range?
it was the end of December or around December 2022, and then on and off throughout the year of 2023.
Okay. Did she keep her belongings at the
Yes,
house?
she did.
Okay. Did she receive mail sometimes at your house?
Yes, she did.
I'm sorry, if I could interrupt briefly. Mr. Chair, the testimony of witnesses has typically been under oath.
I'm sorry.
The testimony of witnesses has typically been under oath. Would the chair mind administering an oath to the witness?
Yeah.
That's a great point.
I apologize.
I don't have a script.
Mr. Chair, I swear to tell the truth.
That's awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
And under penalty of perjury.
Under penalty of perjury.
Mr. Chair, I swear to tell the truth under penalty of perjury.
Anything else?
Ms. Bassan, you're under oath. Have the answers that you've given so far in this direct examination been true?
Yes, they are all
Okay.
true.
So it appears from the documents in this case that Ms. Emilio changed her voter registration address to your residence in April of 2023. Were you aware of her making that change?
I was not fully aware of all of that.
Okay. Did you tell Ms. Emilio to change her voter registration address?
No, I did not.
Okay. Suggested, as far as you're aware, suggested implicitly or explicitly in any way?
No,
Okay. Knowing now that she did change her voter registration address, does that seem inappropriate to you?
it does not seem inappropriate.
Okay. Now, do you remember the circumstances of when you signed your own nominating petition and contributed your own $5 for public financing?
Yes, I do. We were sitting at my kitchen table
Okay.
in my house together, and we both ended up doing it on our own devices, on our own cell phones, digitally.
Okay, so to be clear, you and Miss Emilio in your home?
Yes,
Okay,
where
which,
she was also residing.
okay. And then are you aware, okay, just, did you pressure or influence Miss Emilio to either give that $5 contribution or to sign your nominating petition?
I have not pressured or influenced her in any way to make any decision.
Okay. Are you aware, votes are private, but if you're aware, are you aware of whether Miss Emilio voted for you in the 2023 election?
She made it clear that she will never vote again, nor did she vote in the 2023 election.
Okay, and why is that?
Mudslinging is bad enough during a campaign, and a candidate will understand that they're signing up for that. But to have someone innocent and irrelevant to a situation be smeared the way they were publicly, that wants privacy, was enough to be shameful on that behalf. And so she has decided that she doesn't want to ever be in the public eye again, even though it's public record. Her address, her former ones and current addresses were repeatedly publicly distributed because of this complaint.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bassan.
Counselor? Ms. Bassan? The testimony you just gave was hearsay, correct?
Yes,
All right. Was it true and correct to the best of your recollection?
yes, absolutely.
Does any member of the board have anything more from you you, counsel, have more from Ms. Hassan?
No.
Mr. Esdale, do you have anything more for the counselor? Would you like to question her now, or you want to reserve that?
No, I don't have any questions at the moment. Thank you.
This may be, stay with us then, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Councilor Bassan, you stated you both did the petition and the contribution on your kitchen table. What was discussed, or how was that arranged?
Mr. Chair, Member Martinez, we were eating lunch together, and we both realized that it was time, and I wanted to make sure to do my contribution, and she acknowledged that she had yet to do it as well. So we took out our phones and we made sure to sign the petition for getting me on the ballot and the $5 contribution, but we were breaking bread together in the house that we were living in together.
Thank you.
I have one question. Counselor, to your knowledge, do you have the sole authority to fire, demote, or promote Ms. Emilio in her employment?
Mr. Chair, yes, board member.
That's it.
Councilor Bassan, you said that Ms. Emilio lived at your, in your home off and on during 2023. What, elaborate on what that means?
Mr. Chair, board member, while I tried to maintain some of her privacy, she was embarking on a new relationship. And so she had all of her belongings there, but it didn't mean that she spent every night there.
At your house.
Yes, yes, she had all of her belongings at my house. She had resided there, and she was welcome to come and go as she pleased.
Any more
We could,
questions?
yes.
Go ahead,
I'm
please.
trying to let.
Sure, take your time.
So, you know, without discussing her reasons or getting into her personal matters, did she reside in your home at least one day of every month during that period?
Mr. Chair and board member, yes, I would say absolutely, at least at one day of every month during that
At
period.
least 10 days of every month?
I never kept
Okay.
track of exactly how many days,
Right.
but she was welcome to come and go as she pleased, and she had the alarm code, the access code to get in, and she was able to stay there.
And to your knowledge, she didn't have any other, I'll just cancel that. Did she pay you rent?
Mr. Chair, board member, no, she did not.
You're telling us that you offered to share your home with her, and she accepted and went to and fro from your home for that period of time.
Mr. Chair, I opened the door of my home to a friend in need, and she was welcome to come and go, and it was regardless of our work relationship.
Indeed, that's what happened.
Yes, sir.
One last question. You said you were not fully aware when she changed her registration. Does that mean you had some information that she had changed her registration?
Mr. Chair, board member, I did not know that she was changing her registration from whatever address she had before. And on that same day or whenever she ended up changing her registration. But in the end, when we did discuss, she and I did have a discussion of would I think it's inappropriate if she put my address, and I said no, she was actually living there.
Thank you, Counselor.
Let's, we're going to pause for a moment, Mr. Esdale, but we'll recognize you. So my first question or concern is there any other fact witness that any member of the board thinks is essential material to this, this decision?
And again, I want to point out that the respondent has expressed the intent to offer the recorded testimony of Ms. Emilio. I believe that should be allowed, and once we hear it, then we can entertain a discussion of whether it's relevant or admissible or considerable, but I don't think we can make that consideration until we've heard it.
Okay, so that's very fair. It's here. We ought to listen to it. The last thing we want is to be back here in August. Let's, can we do that, members of the board? Or is there an objection to that? So what is it? Go ahead, Mr.
I'm going to, you know, I think it's hearsay, and well, obviously it's hearsay. And
It's really just to make a record. It's the only
and,
reason we're doing this.
and
I don't think anybody
I will,
is disagreeing.
you know, the will of the chair, take it,
Please.
and,
Mr. Watson.
I just wanted to clarify if the
All right,
board.
this is Carter Harris.
I just wanted to clarify if the board and the parties are done with the questioning of Counselor Bassan, you may elect to let her leave the lectern.
Yeah, as soon as this tape is run,
Oh, okay.
I think it's a more logical.
I'm here with Dawn Marie Emilio. It is January 11th at 9:50. We're here at the law offices of Harrison and Hart. Ms. Emilio, can you please introduce yourself for the record?
Dawn Marie Emilio,
Okay. Ms. Emilio, what is your position in city government?
policy analyst for City Councilor Brooke Bassan.
Okay. How long have you had that job?
With her for 4 years, 5 years prior to that, so 9 years total.
Okay. So let me first describe the setup of where we are. As I mentioned, it's 9:30 p.m. the night before this Board of Ethics case is set to go to a hearing. I wanted to, I guess, explain why that is. So you and I first talked for the first time yesterday, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And then Councilor Bassan and I found out for the first time yesterday that you were not going to be available for tomorrow to testify live at tomorrow's hearing.
yes,
Okay. And then you have kindly agreed to give us a recorded interview and an affidavit in lieu of live testimony?
yes,
Okay. And my understanding is you had work during the day and then school during the evening, so this was the earliest you could come in?
yes.
Okay. And what schooling what are you in school for?
Nursing at CNM?
Okay. Now, you also kindly agreed to allow us to invite Mr. Esdale to appear for this interview as well, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And he was invited if he came, he could ask his own questions of you?
yes,
Okay. Is Mr. Esdale here?
no,
Okay. All right, so let's get right into the kind of meat of the allegations here. So am I correct, looking at the documents, that on April 25th of 2023, you changed your voter registration address from an address on the west side to Councilor Bassan's residence?
yes,
Okay. Did you in fact live with Councilor Bassan?
yes.
Okay, can you tell me in your own words about when you started, what time range you were there?
2022, at least starting in December, and then for most of January, or most of 2023.
Okay, so in April of 2023, when you changed the address, you were in fact staying with Councilor Bassan?
Yes,
Okay. Counselor Bassan suggest that you make the change on the change of address on your voter registration form?
No,
Okay. Did she in any way influence you
no,
to make that change?
no,
Okay. Any type of pressure or inducement, either explicitly or that was felt by you?
no, not at all.
Okay, so am I right that making the change on your voter registration was completely your idea?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you started started staying there at the end of 2022, why did you only make the change in April?
Because I realized, it came to my attention with the voter commercials and ads and reminders to update your registration, I realized mine had not been for quite some time.
Okay. Now also, I see that you signed Councilor Bassan's nominating petition and gave, looks like at the same time, gave a $5 qualifying contribution to help Councilor Bassan get public financing for her race?
Yes,
Okay. And it looks like you did that on or around June 6th.
yes,
Okay, so that's about a month and a half after changing your voter registration address?
yes.
Okay. Did Councilor Bassan appear to you to notice, or did she comment on your eligibility to sign the petition or give
No.
okay. And then I guess more importantly, did Councilor Bassan influence you in any way to sign her nominating petition or give the $5?
No.
Okay. All right. Did you vote in the 2023 election?
No.
Okay, why not?
I rescinded my voter registration altogether
Okay, why is that?
because of the backlash with the news falsely allegations against me, and insinuating information about me. I no longer feel comfortable having my voter registration public.
Okay. Well, Ms. Amelia, that's all the questions that I have for you. Thank you so much for meeting with us, and I appreciate you doing it at this difficult hour.
Of course.
And for the board's consideration, excuse me, I'd like to move into evidence exhibits 1, 2, and 3. Exhibit 1 being the affidavit that Ms. Emilio swore to. Exhibit 2 being our email to the complainant, inviting him to be present for the interview of Ms. Emilio, and Exhibit 3 being the audio that the board just heard live.
Motion? Go ahead, Counselor. Board member.
I don't think we need a motion. Previously, the chair has made decisions on the admission of exhibits. And I'm talking about in past years, at different board hearings.
Mr. Chair, I think that's in the rules, that's within the scope of your authority to make decisions on the admission of evidence.
So where are we? Are you waiting to hear from us?
I was here.
Go ahead.
Certainly. So what I'd say is obviously we're not thrilled about the fact that Ms. Emilio was not available. I thought we had kind of lined that up. It didn't work out. We tried to create the fairest process that we could under the circumstances for when we found out that she was not going to be here available. Tried to ask the questions that made sense to ask under the circumstances. Obviously, you know, the board could have had its own questions. And I think that does go to the weight of something like this, and it would be more valuable had she been here. However, I don't think that it goes to the admissibility of the exhibits before a board like this. I mean, the reality is this board could have rules of evidence that excluded hearsay, and they, in fact, expressly have chosen, you have expressly chosen to go in the other direction and allow hearsay. I don't think that makes hearsay perfect or requires you to suspend your disbelief that it is as good as live and in-person testimony, but I think under the rules, the exhibits are rather clearly admissible.
Thank you, Counselor.
And I see
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Rizzo standing, so
Please. Mr. Estill,
Yes, I have a question.
I know you might have one, but I have one first.
Yes.
Do you object to the introduction and admission of the recorded statement Mr. Harrison presented of Ms. Emilio's conversation with him yesterday?
No, that's fine.
Thank you. And what is on your mind, sir?
You know, I did have a question. It's a little strange because we just listened to a recording and the witness isn't here, and, you know, I wasn't able to make it last night. But I wondered why she changed her voter registration, but didn't change her mailing address. You know, I'd like some insight into that, okay? And the other thing is, as somebody who is a big fan of democracy, I mean, I'm horrified that now we have somebody who is not even going to vote. She's not going to vote because of such a situation she sees that is so slimy, she feels humiliated. So anyway, that's my feeling. I feel very badly about that, but I did have the question about the voter registration and the mailing address, why that wasn't done at the same time. So I didn't know if Mr. Carter knew or Ms. Bassan.
Lots of people get out of politics for that very reason. I understand that.
But Ms. Emilio is not the respondent. She's not, she doesn't have any claims or charges pending against her for irregularity in her voting records. Councilor Bassan is the respondent, and we're here to determine whether she made some violation of the specific sections of the city's ethics code.
Is it the sense of the board that, given what we know about availability of witnesses and the examinations that have occurred thus far, that there's no more testimony that you would like to hear from people present today?
If I could, Mr. Chair, just
Go ahead.
there has been a motion by the respondent to move the exhibits into evidence. There was no objection by the complainant. If I could just have the chair's decision on that issue, unless you're intending to seek further.
No. I thought we had done that,
Okay, okay, it is. I apologize.
and it's been admitted. Now you distracted me. So where were we? You've got to help me get back there.
This discussion of any further witnesses by the board or any further testimony that the board needs to decide this issue.
I think we just covered that, right? Ms. Capper, you didn't have anything?
Well, again, it's not whether I would like any more testimony. Mr. Harrison, do you have any more witnesses?
That's asked and answered. We do not. So it strikes me that notwithstanding our elaborate schedule, that we've been through all of the exhibits and testimony presented today. In other words, there are no more matters immediately pending in connection with this evidentiary hearing. And so the question is, does the board want to move on to deciding the case? Is there something of an administrative nature that the clerk wants to raise with us before we do that?
The board schedule had outlined closing statements. If the board determines those are not necessary, I do think the board can move to determination of the merits or determination of how to proceed on the complaint.
We'll excuse you, Ms. Bassan. Thank you for your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes, sir.
If I understood Mr. Harrison correctly, I think he made something akin to a motion for a directed verdict. After Mr. Esdale's case, I think we could say we held that, awaiting presentation of the defense case, and I think now we can consider it. I don't know what the feeling is generally, but I think that under the board rules, we have the authority to dismiss, and I think that we can meet those parameters based upon what's in front of us, and that would be my preference.
Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
Mr. Cuniff, do you want to, I think I'd appreciate it if you laid out, I think you wanted, you see this as a dismissible case, if you want to lay out grounds for us to contemplate. And
Mr. Chair, I think that there isn't sufficient evidence in front of us to reach a conclusion that there's been a violation by Ms. Basson, and absent that evidence, we're not in a position to make any ruling against her. And based upon what we've seen today, this doesn't seem to me like a good case to refer for further investigation. We have to make determinations about how our resources are going to be used, and there just isn't really anything here from an evidentiary standpoint to latch onto. I thought that the one witness who appeared today was very credible, and I too would have preferred to have Ms. Emilio here in person, but there was nothing in her recorded statement that raised any concerns with respect to its veracity. And so I just don't think there's anything here for us to, upon which to find a violation.
The only thing that I would add to that is, this is not a case in which I at least have been persuaded that the complainant made his threshold case. So I completely agree and think this is time to wrap this up.
I guess I'll move that the board find that Counselor Basson, let me start again. I move that the board find insufficient evidence that Counselor Basson violated Section 7, Article 12 of the City of Albuquerque's Ethics Code.
For a second? I'll second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are there any other observations, motions, concerns in the nature of wrapping this up that would make the record clearer, that somebody has on their mind they want to put out there before we walk out?
Just a question for the city clerk. Since the city clerk made prior determinations of the jurisdiction of some of the other complainants' claims, do we need to address those on the record or those covered by your referral letter?
Mr. Chairman, Member Caffrey, there is a procedure in the clerk's rules and the board's rules for parties to appeal my predeterminations. That my determination was about the jurisdictional issues was not appealed, so that really issue is not for the board, as in my mind. The only issue really was the Section 7 violation, which by the board's motion has been adjudicated at this point, so there is nothing further on this complaint to address.
Mr. Chair, quick question. So does something go out to the public, to the media, based on our decision to possibly validate or validate Ms. Emilio? Or nothing?
Can I assist? So Mr. Watson, from the perspective of papering this meeting and the decision that was made, what does your office do?
So typically thank you, Member Martinez, Chairman Kelly, the board chair has drafted the order regarding the specific complaint at the end of the hearing. We can assist with that, but, and then those rulings are published on our website. All the proceedings are, and we typically do not publish or we do not do media releases regarding the rulings of the board. It is the party's prerogative to do whatever they will with them, and parties typically do that. And so we can work with the chairman to draft on the appropriate paperwork after this meeting regarding the procedural orders.
Well, that's what I'd be inclined to do. Mr. Marks, what's on your mind? You've got a lot of experience with what can go wrong in these cases.
That's what we do. I mean, I would say that we issue an order and there wasn't enough evidence and there really wasn't. I understand where Mr. Esdale, I think he was clear as to it was an appearance of something that didn't seem right, but it wasn't what Mr. Esdale was getting at, which is that somehow Councilor Bassan improperly influenced her employee. You know, truly, it's a fraught situation always when you have employees who are directly reporting to an elected official. And I've been in that situation myself. But Mr. Esdale, what you brought just wasn't there. But I'd say, if, Mr. Chair, your order, you draft an order, as we've done in more difficult and controversial cases, and we've tended not to be very detailed. You had your motion. You know, I think we approved the motion that there just wasn't enough evidence, and that'll be it. That'll be it. And I think, Mr. Esdale, you got your hearing.
You know, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time. Thanks for looking into this. I think it's a very difficult problem in self-government. We have municipal employers and people who are employees, and we have testimony from Dawn, who says, I was not influenced. We have testimony from Councilor Bassan, I did not influence. We really can't move more deeply than that. You know, that's it. I appreciate you entertaining that, and we just have to believe in the integrity of both the employers and the employees. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Esdale. So this proceeding, I think, this hearing, first of all, today, is concluded, and we can move to that effect. Is there anything else that you'd like to see in the record, Mr. Watson?
Just a motion to adjourn if the board is so inclined.
Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned.